All right, Lokati here. We are looking at our Flicker Strike build on a low budget. This is a one div sword that we've crafted on. This helmet probably for 50 or 60 C. This shield we crafted on for maybe a total investment of about a div. We have a Carnage Heart here. We've got some cheap amethyst rings. We've got a generic 6-link with some resistances. We've got a couple C Ceaseless Fist. Got a couple C into a belt, and we've got a couple C into Dark Ray Vectors. We're just using a diamond flask, a granite flask, a silver flask, a life flask, and a tincture. So nothing complex here. We're going to run through this map. This is an 8 mod, 113% quant, fully juiced map. So damage is good. That was a lot of explosions, but we can dodge those because we have super fast whirling blades or leap slam, whatever your preference is. And you can see, like, tanky targets, they may live a little bit longer. And this one especially, because we didn't get our frenzy charges going. But we're generating our frenzy charges through Ceaseless Feast and our mark on hit. And we actually do need to make one change real quick, because on the low budget version, we need to be running strength and, or sorry, not strength and blood, but we need to be running iron reflexes to actually trigger Ceaseless Fist. So I pulled out my lethal pride so that we have access to that additional frenzy charge generation on the low budget version of the build. And so very, very straightforward. Like, you hit Flicker Strike, everything dies, you pick up loot. It goes off screen, across screen, into the other screen, sometimes where you don't want it to go, but it absolutely melts everything on a very, very reasonable budget. This right now is probably 2 to 3 million DPS. And then we can take all of these, we can take a lot of these nodes, and so 64% extra damage is a random element from the boss. We don't care about Eldritch Minions, we don't care about, those don't give us any reasonable rewards. We can always come back later and just click on it to get the loot from the extra mods. But for right now, we don't care about anything on our map unless it gives us quant or more map drops. Now for bosses, we do have our tincture. Our tincture is a huge damage boost, about 75% more damage for the tincture I'm running. And so that is a tremendous amount of damage. You'll see this boss in here, when we hit our tincture, instantly phases. So we are kind of cheating a little bit because we have some meteors. And then we're just doing leech on hit with mana leech from Clever Thief on a tree to keep our mana going. Alright, let's take a look at our path of building for the Flicker Strike Slayer. We're going to look at our early budget first. This is all fairly straightforward. I'm not including a leveling guide in this because we are like week 2 sometime in the league. And leveling is fairly straightforward. Buy leveling gear, level the character however you want to. Once you get to the higher end of the game, this is what you're going to be doing. I have this one set up at level 92. You can obviously do it much sooner than level 92. If you do, you're just not going to be going up to this part of the tree. So you won't have access to all of this stuff up here early on. You would want to rush Mark Mastery for the Frenzy Charge on hit. You would want to rush Sword Mastery for the Frenzy Charge on hit. And you would want to rush Tribal Fury for the melee splash on hit. Outside of that, this is what we're looking at level 92. We are running a Rebuke of the Vol for a very cheap 1C sword, which does 989 DPS and is very, very strong. It gives us accuracy we need, and it gives us damage which we need. We are running a shield that has accuracy on it, a very high chance to block, and has armor and evasion, max life, and we craft strength and intelligence on it. We're running a Haunted Bassinet that we are going to implicit roll for reduced mana cost and 17% mana reservation efficiency of skills. We are going to be looking for accuracy, armor and evasion, and max life on that helm. On our body armor, we're running armor and evasion and increased armor and evasion. We are running 1C Ceaseless Feast spiked gloves, maybe 2 or 3C. This gives us a 30% chance to gain Frenzy Charge on hitting an enemy when we have no evasion rating. And so this is a very, very strong way for us to maintain uptime on our frenzy charges while we are flicker striking around. Down here, we are looking at Carnage Heart as our amulet. Carnage Heart is giving us attributes, Ellie Res, increased damage while leeching, increased leech. It's just a really strong all-around starter amulet for 1C. We do want to get an amethyst ring that has strength on it. We'd prefer accuracy, max life, and elemental damage with attack skills. And we are running a taming ring as our first like big budget item. You can get these for as low as 15C, as high as 200C, depending on the rolls on it. And then on our belt, we are running a max life, armor and evasion belt. I mean, this is just stat stick for us. I have not put any resistances on any of this gear. You can fill in the resistances as you need. If you need resistances, don't forget that you can always come over here to your hoarder crafting station. You can take a cold resistance item and move it to a similar to your fire, or you can take a cold resistance item, move it to a similar to your lightning, back and forth. You can adjust resistances around as you need to cap your resistances. So as you're looking for gear, don't worry too much if it's the wrong resistance, but it's a high tier roll. Grab it and go ahead and convert it over. We're running silver flask, granite flask, jade flask, and a tincture. I've got a cheap tincture here. Tinctures are new to the game. They are ridiculously strong. They give us the ability to burn down large targets very quickly. They have a very short 8-second cooldown to reuse them again once you deactivate them, and it'll take a little bit of time to play around with it and get a feel for it. On the budget version of the build, we are running Blood-Soaked Blade, which means tinctures burn life instead of mana. The reason we're doing that is because we're running two 50% auras. So we're running Determination and Anger to bolster our damage and our defenses, and then we're life tapping everything so that we can go ahead and use 0 mana and have all of our mana reserved. Now once we step up to the mid budget, our items are going to change. We pick up a high LE damage sword. This one is about 625 LE DPS base and gives us the ability to have a higher accuracy rating on it, craft on additional lightning damage, craft on critical strike chance. We go for a shield that has, again, similar stats, but we're starting to get better stats in general and craft on strength and int. We have a helmet here that is very similar to the one that we had earlier. We do spend a significant amount of currency on Feral's Fur. This gives us the ability to generate frenzy and power charges with Aspect of the Cat. We pick up some gloves, which are relatively cheap to get Aspect of the Cat skill on. We do need to link a less duration to Aspect of the Cat. This just means that in one of your glove sockets, like this, all by its lonesome, not linked to anything, is less duration support. This will support Aspect of the Cat and cause it to change between Cat's agility and Cat's stealth more rapidly, making sure to keep your frenzy and your power charges topped off. And so this is a very important thing that you need to do just to make sure that you are getting the power and frenzy charge generation that you're going to need for the build. Now we are switching over to Ralakesh's Impatience in the mid-budget side, a Yoke of the Suffering in the mid-budget side. We are using, again, a Taming in the mid-budget side and an Arn's Anguish. Now these you're going to progress periodically. And so we'll make some notes here. So mid-budget gearing. So your first upgrades on your items are going to be a Taming, and then a Yoke of Suffering, and then an Interrogation. So it goes Taming, Yoke, Interrogation. When you get the Interrogation, you'll switch to Skitterbots, because you'll need Skitterbots to trigger the Chill and the Shock, so you continue to get those ailment benefits to Taming and Yoke, and then Interrogation will allow your crits to inflict Brittle, Sapped, and Scorched, which again scales your damage with Yoke and Taming. But getting an Interrogation before the Yoke is not beneficial to you. So you get Taming first, Yoke second, Interrogation third, Ralakesh fourth, and then Arn's Anguish you get with Ralakesh. Arn's Anguish is like 15C for a base Arn's Anguish. Ralakesh is expensive. Yokes right now are like 7D, Interrogations are like 1D, Ralakesh is like 14D, Arn's Anguish is cheap, Taming is cheap. So this will give you a good progression of getting from your early budget up into your high budget, or up into your mid budget. Now, Feral's Fur and aspect of the cat. You can do Feral's Fur, you can upgrade to this before or after the below upgrade path. It is independent of it. If you want to save up to get into a Feral's Fur and an aspect of the cat faster, so that you have more damage and more consistency with your frenzy charges, do it. If you want a more linear progression path, do Taming, Yoke, Interrogation, Ralikesh, and Arns next. If you want to, you can do a Taming and then a Yoke and an Interrogation, and then get a Feral's Fur and aspect of cat before your Ralikesh and Arns Anguish. But this is independent of this progression path, so do this at your rate. Now, once you are in the mid-budget and you've got all your items squared away, we're going to be hitting about 22 million DPS. On our jewels down here, we're just getting increased life and attack speed and maybe ignite duration, something beneficial to us here. On our large cluster jewel, so that we can use interrogation, we do need Calamitous Feed the Fury and Martial Prowess. Calamitous could be Smite the Weak or Heavy Hitter or Advanced Guard. There's a lot of different versions of this cluster jewel, but Feed the Fury and Martial Prowess are the most important nodes on that cluster. And then you want to make sure it has 8 passive skills and 3 named skills, so that you're maximizing the expenditure of your skill points on the tree. Now, on our early budget build, we'll talk about the tree in a second, but on our early budget build, we are getting Rage right here. On our mid-budget build, we are using a Lethal Pride to give us Rage on hit. Now, this Lethal Pride also has some melee crit multiplier here, some double damage here, some increased armor here, some melee crit multiplier here. There's a lot of useful stats that you can get, but we need the Rage on hit to generate Rage to give up this Rage node right here. So until you get a Lethal Pride, keep your Rage node here. Now, on our mid-budget items, we are also running a Crimson Jewel down here that has increased mana reservation efficiency of skills, just to give us a little bit better reservation efficiency, so we have some unreserved mana. That's not necessary. And in fact, if you have the opportunity to get a Corrupted Blood cannot be inflicted on you as a much better layer of defense for your character. Now, I'm not going to take a lot of time going over high budget, but high budget does 200 million DPS with an almost 30k Fizz max hit with no guard skills, 267,000 effective health pool, and 55k elemental max hit. It's incredibly tanky with 65% block, 65% spell block, 96% spell suppression, 60% evasion, 22k armor, and still pumps out over 200 million DPS. So if you're looking for something that can do any content in the game, this is what you'll work towards. But there's a long journey between mid-budget and high budget to get there. So we're not going to take a lot of time going over that. But if you have questions, stop by my Twitch channel and ask all you want. It's like 12-hour-a-day live tech support for any build that I do. I enjoy helping people figure out their builds and learning how to play their character so that they can have more fun in PoE. It's like a puzzle, trying to fix things and put pieces together, and I like puzzles. Now, we'll go back to our early budget. On our skill tree, things that are important. You want to get Testudo because you want the recover 30 life and the increased block. You want the shield mastery, so you have increased block here. You want block mastery for increased spell block here. You want deflection for increased block here. We have rage on hit until we get a lethal pride here. You want max frenzy charges, and you want life everywhere you can get. We are running versatile combatant so that all of our over capped block attack goes to our spell block. We are running Sword Mastery for the Frenzy Charge. We are running Mark Mastery for the Frenzy Charge. And we are getting a little bit of Spell Suppression with Lucky Spell Suppress, so that this ends up being a very, very strong defensive layer for a very cheap investment. Now, we are running Precise Technique on the early budget builds. You don't have to worry about crit. Just make sure that your accuracy is always above your life, which should not be very difficult at all. And then you're going to go up the tree to get your Evasion Mastery here, your Elemental Mastery here, and our additional Frenzy Charge here. On the mid-budget build, things change a little bit. We stop using Life Tap, and we switch over to Mana. So we need Instant Leech and Mana Leech here. We do need the Reservation and Mana Reduction, so we take Mana Mastery here and Thrill of Battle here. We are at crit now, so we pick up our crit nodes here, our crit nodes here, and our crit nodes here. This one is very strong, so get this early. This is 80% chance to crit against bleeding enemies, and then 80% increase crit against bleeding enemies here, 30% crit multiply against bleeding enemies, and then here's your chance to bleed. So this wheel right here is probably one of the most powerful wheels in the game for any crit-based build. And we don't do a lot of bleed DPS, but we do a lot of damage, and so this helps to scale all of our critical strike. Now, other small changes here, we drop evasion mastery because Ralakesh does not have evasion on it, so we can't take advantage of that. But until you get Ralakesh, keep your evasion mastery here. We are running no life nodes on our chest armor so that we can run 15% increased maximum life. And we pick up an extra power charge here because Pharaoh's Fur keeps up power charges, and this is an easy source of critical strike chance for us. And on our high budget, we have very few small changes, but you can take a look at those if you want to start moving in that direction. Now, like I said before, Flicker Strike is a good build, and one thing it suffers from is survivability. So we have made this to be as tanky as it can possibly be. Don't skimp on the layers of defense. We want to have high spell suppression, but max spell suppress is too much investment. We want to have high block chance and spell block chance, but max ends up sometimes being too much investment. And so you just want to make sure you're hitting all of the layers, because they all work together to get you to a point where you can survive very easily. Now, anoints are up in the air. If you need a DPS anoint, Disciple of Unyielding is very good. If you want a survivability anoint, Circle of Life is cheap, and Excess Sustenance is cheap. And both of those are very good survivability anoints to go on your amulet over here. Now, if you have any questions on the build, come by Twitch or leave a comment down below. I'll answer them as quickly as I can. If you have a character that you want to transition over to the build, we can also help with that. Just swing by and let me know what your character looks like, and we can figure out how to transition it over. And if you want help leveling in the build, just come by and ask. I'll figure out something to help you get your character leveled up. But I would recommend not leveling with Flicker Strike. It's a tough one to level with, so pick a different skill. Heavy Strike is surprisingly good. Lightning Strike is always good. And this build is very close to our Lightning Strike build. So if you're looking to try something a little bit different, this is a very easy transition away from Lightning Strike and into Flicker Strike. Alright, y'all. Thanks for watching the video. As always, come by Twitch if you have any questions, or check out this video that YouTube thinks you like, or check out our latest upload over there. Peace.